Males of Reddit, what is the craziest reaction you've had when you said no thanks, I don't want to have sex? I got a 45-minute lecture about how that makes her feel terrible about her body and how I'm basically emotionally abusing her by not wanting to have sex with her. We're no longer together, thankfully. I literally had to install a lock on my bedroom door, and the first night I locked it she battled it for like 4 hours and was screaming open the goddamn door. And I'm not going to rape you. Door stayed locked. In our 20s me and my friends liked to hit up this local dive bar. Drinks were poured strong and cheap, decent beer selection, and not crowded at all. Since it was a bit divey we were usually the youngest by a generation. This one night some old woman that was either experimenting with the wet hair look, or was getting her wet every 10 minutes, not entirely sure, took a drunken liking to me. After I refused her a few times she say something like, if you don't loosen up you'll be a virgin forever, pulls her shirt up to flash me as a look what you're missing I guess, and storms off. Bartender poured me a free one so I got a beer out of it at least. If you don't have sex with me, I'm going to get out of this car and walk home. I don't even know where I am so I'll probably die. In college, had a few trysts that ended badly, decided to take it slow on the next one. Hung out with a girl one Saturday while we were both pretty drunk. Made out on my bed. She started taking her clothes off and I said, "Not yet." She screamed at me. She said that I basically told her that she was hideous. She never talked to me again. Spread rumors that I was gay. Every time I would meet a new woman, she would meet with them privately and lie about me. Didn't really have much luck with ladies the rest of college. The craziest reactions would be them not taking no for an answer, and persistently kept asking, thinking that would wear me down. And honestly, they did wear me down. She started pouting and said, "Fine then, I'm going to stop sending you pictures and talking dirty to you." I said that's probably a good idea. I don't think your boyfriend would like you doing that anyway. Now can we please just watch Flubber, or he'll go home. You're cool. After seeing I was annoyed, she tried the I'm sorry route and started trying to cuddle up and undo my belt again. I said apparently we couldn't be friends and went home and finished watching Flubber alone. Short story, I got hit with crowbar. Long story, she said okay. We walked back to my place. I guess she was still thinking it might happen there, not at hers. A loony came charging out of his house screaming about us throwing snowballs at his door. We hadn't, and whacked me with a crowbar in the ribs. She stopped him before he hit me again, don't really remember how, and just then the police he'd already called turned up. Got me to hospital. 2 broken ribs, 1 cracked, 1 collapsed lung. GF did say, when she visited me next day, it was all my own fault for not staying and fucking her. P. On our date, she had gotten drunk while I had stayed sober. When I got her back to her place, she wanted to do it, but I don't roll that way. She got pretty upset and said I have to do her, along with some other fairly presumptive things, and she was incredibly persistent. I eventually got her to accept that it wasn't happening that night, and I got her to go to bed. Not that crazy in the grand scheme of things. She and I ended up dating for a year or so, and she was generally a very kind and caring person. Nothing particularly crazy, but I messed around with a pretty sex-crazed girl for a few months in college. She initially responded with, "How are you not always thinking about and wanting sex?" Explained refractory periods, soreness of the whole male sexual apparatus, all that jazz. Whenever I tried to leave she'd accost me and make my anatomy betray me until I gave in and would regret if for said soreness later. She texted me repeatedly to come over one day while I was playing tabletop war games with some friends, and I was like, you know, I want this more. Never went to her place again after that. Got good at War Machine. Went over to a girl's place and we were watching a movie when we started making out and were almost about to do it, when I realized all the psychotic behavior she had displayed in trying hard to not even meet me initially and knew this would just end up being worse. So I said, "Nah, I'm good. This doesn't feel right," and left. A day later, she sends me a hate text calling me an asshole and saying I was begging to meet and this is why I was single and would go through life doing nothing but playing video games. Yeah, okay, lady, you spent most of the time we spoke saying no to even a coffee date and now suddenly I am at fault. Me and my girlfriend broke up mutually. I woke up around 4 in the morning to her in my clothes in bed with me begging to have sex. I say no. Then she proceeds to drunkenly puke all over my possessions. 1 stroke 10 never do again. Got accused of stalking her, which was ironic considering her behavior afterwards. I've literally only said that once. I barely knew the girl. She just told me I'll wish I changed my mind. I don't. In absurdly broad, anecdotal strokes, I found once we got to our late 20s, turning a woman down initially led to more frequent sex initially. I think by that time, sexually active women are used to sex on their schedule, and disrupting that led to more insistent encounters in the next week or so. Not something I ever tried for, just something I noticed in retrospect. I went over to my friend's place once to chill and drink. He got a call and said the party's moving to this one girl's house because she's got a bottle. So 6 dudes roll up to this girl's house and it's just her and her roommate already hammered. The drunk host calls me cute and pours me a drink. She's attractive but seems crazy. Then she tries kissing me after about 2 minutes of meeting this chick and I'm not interested. She gets angry, calls me a social retard and moves around the room to get shut down by everybody. She keeps drinking and gets back to me and jumps at my trying to make out, but I just sit her down in my chair and say I'm not going to fuck you tonight. I think we left once the bottle was gone, which worked out because the cops were called on her and showed up after we left. A few days later I heard she was at her ex-fiance's house and killed herself with his shotgun. It was in a safe but she had a key. Really makes you think. This just happened like a week and a half ago, and she was fairly drunk. I hooked up with a girl in a bar one night, and afterwards, I decided to myself that I didn't want to do it anymore because she wasn't my type of girl, but she still did. I felt bad for hitting it and quitting it, and I knew it wasn't going to be a very pleasant situation when I told her no. Anyway, the time comes. I tell her that I don't want to hook up anymore, and she lost her damn mind. She got in my face, completely invaded my personal space, called me a piece of shit, said why I'm fucking hot, and a bunch of other stuff. I even told her that I would like to be pals, but she shot that down instantly, and she's been shitty to me ever since. It sucks. Just because a girl is hot doesn't mean she's worth sticking your dick in. Trust me. So I don't know what was up with this girl, but she wanted in my pants probably more than was healthy. I turned her down on several occasions and usually she accepted it with grace and composure. I never ended up having sex with her, and one day when I was propositioned by her she just freaked out, and what went from a weird friendship turned into full out bitch fest on me, her saying that I was leading her on this whole time, making her think I wanted to date her, keeping her out of the dating world, and basically just being a dick. I was later explained by one of our mutual friends that she apparently thought that I was being nice to her because I liked her and that I teamed with her online because I wanted to go on dates with her. Turned out she had this whole relationship fantasy about us that was never real and I was oblivious to it the whole time. You think I'm ugly so I'm going to kill myself. Number. I'm exhausted from your texts fighting with me while I'm at work, doing work at work, dealing with you being sad because I want 20 minutes to myself and your previous half dozen suicide threats today. Had been working at a new bar for a couple of months. One of the waitresses who had a rep for sleeping with new doormen gets hammered and can't drive home. I take her home, walk her into her house, put her on the couch and put a blanket over here. As I'm leaning down putting the blanket over her, she grabs my shirt and tries pulling me down to kiss her. I tell her she's drunk, so no thanks. And then she proceeds to tell everyone at work I'm gay for the next 6 months because I wouldn't take advantage of her while she was drunk. I've had a glass of vodka poured on me and told that I was an ass for leading her on. I didn't lead her on, I was having normal conversation with her. She was drunk and I wasn't. My ex-girlfriend showed up at my apartment at 2 AM completely shit-faced telling me she needed to sleep it off at my house. Being that I didn't want to see her kill herself or someone else driving, I let her crash in my bed and I take the couch. As I am trying to sleep, she wanders out to the living room completely nude telling me she wants me to come to bed. I tell her that I will absolutely not sleep in bed with her and whatever she had in mind would not be happening. Being that she was not a very rational woman while we were together and she was sober, it escalated to her screaming at me and how I am going to regret denying her. At one point she mentioned that unless I come to bed with her she is going to contact the police and tell them I raped her. I take this time to grab my car keys and leave immediately with her screaming at me all the way down the stairs. I decided to sleep at my dad's and not return to the apartment. Luckily she never tried anything and never contacted me again. Last I heard she was living across the country. She had a half crying half angry crisis. Kept asking if it was something she did or if there was someone else or if I was sick and ranting about how no guy says no to sex. You're mad about something. All I could think the whole time is, I have to never, ever react like this if someone tells me they don't want to have sex. This is just embarrassing. I was seeing a girl off and on, and she texted and wanted me to come over and then go grab a drink. I drove over to her apartment and when she opened the door she was falling over drunk. I went in and poured myself a drink and sat on the couch. She sat right beside me and put her hands all over me and under my shirt, slurring and talking super close. Her teeth stained grey by the red wine. I just was really put off by it. I told her I didn't feel like having sex and she blew up crying and got angry and mean, saying that men can never say no and how can you do this to me? I calmed her down and told her I wanted to go home and just wasn't in the mood for this, or drinking in general. She asked me to take her to the bar so I dropped her off. She was usually a pretty respectable person. I didn't judge her harshly. Drinking can make people irrational and emotional.